We're joined now by Randall Stephenson, the CEO of AT&T. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So you had this big news break yesterday. What do you have to say to DOJ Chief Megan Delrahim?
Oh, I don't have anything to say to him. That'll be said in court filings and pleadings with the appeals court. So
do you know on what grounds this appeal is being filed?
We've been questioning on what grounds many things have been filed over the last 6-7 months. As you recall, coming into the original lawsuit, people were saying, what is the basis of the lawsuit? And the complaint was filed and everybody read it and kind of had a hard time discerning really what was the basis of the complaint. 25 million pages of documents are collected. We go through depositions. We go through an entire trial. And at the end of the trial, we get a very, I thought, thoughtful, very thorough, very fact-based order. And basically said that this transaction is pro-competitive. And so now we go to appeal, and at some point one has to question, is the transaction actually pro-competitive? So it'll be interesting. We don't know exactly what the government's basis will be for the appeal.
So what do you think the intentions are of this appeal, though? I mean, is this going to be an expensive, costly process for you?
It's been an expensive, costly process already. The clock on legal fees has been running, and it's been running on both sides. The taxpayers' legal costs have been running, and our legal costs have been running as well. So we'll have to continue the clock running with the lawyers. So yeah, it will be a costly process. But look, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much to us. It doesn't change anything I'm going to do today other than we'll talk about this rather than, the merits of the deal and what we're doing as a business. But the transaction's closed, and we're executing on the transaction.
So is this appeal political?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't even want to get into that. That's a question that's been asked from day one of this transaction. But as to whether there are other motivations behind it other than just pure antitrust law, I'll leave that to others to speculate and comment about.
Joe, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I just wonder about the timeline, Randall. What was it a total surprise to you? Did you have wind of this in the last couple of weeks, or even from when you initially got the ruling from Judge Leon? Were you expecting this to happen, or you had no idea or didn't even think about it?
No, I had contemplated an appeal from the very beginning. The government, the antitrust division, obviously seems very intent on pursuing this particular transaction. And so we actually told our board after we received Judge Leon's opinion that it was a terrific opinion. We thought it was a very thoughtful and thorough opinion. We thought it would stand well up in an appellate process. But we told the board you should anticipate an appeal. So we were expecting an appeal. Yes. They were getting to the point in time where they needed to file it if they were going to get it done in the 60-day time horizon. And so, it was just a matter of when. But no, we weren't surprised that they appealed.
See, that makes me think that maybe in the back of your mind, you don't want to comment on the political side of things, but given the thoroughness and the logic in Judge Leon's decision, the motivation of the DOJ or the government in this case, it's hard for me to imagine that they're looking at the merits of their case rather than almost, I said earlier that they're just sore losers or something, or it's political or something. So I don't know how you. I know you won't. Won't help you to decide it is political. It doesn't change things for you. But I'm just trying to figure out what else could it be.
I was telling Julia earlier that the rumors and the suggestions around Sun Valley right now, it's all very very interesting. People are speculating what's really going on. We'll just wait and we'll see what's in the appeal. There will be, I'm sure, a legal-based reason in the appeal. We're anxious to read it and see what it entails. But at this stage, I don't have any comment on what else is behind this. We'll look at it on the legal merits, as will the appellate court.
Well, specifically, people are speculating that this could really damage Comcast's ability or hurt Comcast's potential from a regulatory perspective to make another bid for Fox.
Well, probably can't help it.
Well, and so what do you think in terms of that? Is this intended to send that message to Comcast?
No, again, I'm not going to get into what the department's intent is behind any of this. I'll leave that to others to speculate. But obviously, it does affect that process. You're in a situation where two entities are bidding for an asset, and this kind of action can obviously influence the outcome of those actions, but who knows whether that's behind this.
Analyst Craig Moffett, who's written quite a bit about this, suggested the appeal could focus on challenging Judge Leon's premise that a programmer would not take into account the economics of their distributor parent. Turner would not take into account the economics of AT&T when negotiating. If this becomes the focal point of this appeal, how do you address those concerns?
I don't know. Craig Moffitt's had a lot to say about this transaction. Not much of it's been right so far, so I don't know that I'll comment on Craig's points. But look, the merits of the case have been tried. 25 million pages of documents, testimony in a trial, an extensive trial, and an extensive order. So at the end of the day, we feel like the law is on our side. We feel good about where we are, and we think the appellate court will look at it on the merits of the law.
Melissa?
Randall, like perhaps AT&T is being made the poster child or being made some sort of an example for the Justice Department to send a signal that they're just not going to step aside and let vertical mergers go through willy-nilly.
Yeah, I didn't hear all of the question, Melissa, but I heard you talk about vertical mergers.
Do you think that that stepping in right now and challenging Judge Leon's decision is sort of to send a message out to the markets from the Justice Department that vertical mergers aren't just going to get the green light at this point? Is AT&T being made an example?
It's an interesting question. It's one that we obviously have thought about a lot. Judge Leon's opinion, again, a very good opinion, but probably it was so fact-specific to our case that it probably doesn't carry a lot of precedent as you think about going forward. As this goes to an appellate court, a Fifth Circuit appellate court, who is very well versed in these issues, if the appellate court upholds Judge Leon, then there are a lot of people, a lot of lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just repeating what I hear lawyers telling me. A lot of legal minds say this could be a precedent setting, and so this could go a direction that could actually help establish law around vertical mergers. We thought that law had been established, 50 years of precedent. We stepped into this transaction with Time Warner thinking the law was established. The government challenged it, so it kind of threw that up in the air. But this really could end up solidifying what the law is around vertical mergers.
When we started this week here in Sun Valley, oh, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, I just, we talked about what the uncertainty for Comcast and their deal. What about the uncertainty for AT&T? And I'm trying to figure out how that would play out when an analyst has already, downgraded the stock based on the overhang of just not knowing what's going to happen and how long it takes. It's already Warner Media. John Stankey's already been meeting with employees. You've already launched the new Watch TV, pay TV service. Do you see anything concrete or tangible that will be affected or delayed by knowing that this is in the works? Is the analyst right that there will be an overhang for?
No, this changes nothing. As I mentioned earlier, this changes nothing I'm doing today except talking about this issue on camera. This changes nothing we'll be doing over the next 30 days or the next 12 months. We're about executing our plan, Joe. We think the likelihood of this thing being reversed and overturned is really remote. It's a very narrow path that would have to be traveled to get this thing reversed in any way. So we're about executing our plan. The merger's closed. We own Time Warner. As you said, it's been renamed Warner Media, and John Stankey is executing. We have acquired AppNexus, which is an ad tech platform, to begin implementing the advertising business plan around this. So we're off and running. Nothing's going to change that. So I don't see any impact from this to us.
It may not change what you do, Randall, but it may change the perception of investors towards your stock. We are showing right now the stock chart of AT&T since the DOJ first announced the lawsuit. The stock is down 8%. The point that this Raymond James analyst made in the downgrade of your stock this morning is that this is going to be yet another overhang for an unknown period of time in which the stock will likely trade lower or at least trade sideways. What do you tell investors in terms of the timing of this, and if there is at some point a pain point at which you say, you know what, we're not sure anymore?
Now, what I tell investors is what I just said to you. It doesn't change anything in terms of what we're doing. And I think the merit of the transaction has been played out in terms of what you're seeing with valuations of other media assets. We feel really good about the assets that we got, the great brands that we got, and we'll execute. In terms of overhang of the stock and uncertainty, there's not much we can do about that except address it in the court. And so we'll work it as expeditiously as we can, but it's in the hands of the court now.
All right.
Mike, do you want to jump in there? Otherwise, I've got more.
Yeah,
more
Randall, I mean, I guess
here.
I would just add on to that. You said you're going to execute the plan, but do you think there'll be any sensitivity while this appeal is ongoing toward rolling out any products, making any initiatives that might give the appearance of perhaps bundling products in some ways that might provoke the criticism that, in fact, this is anti-competitive as a merger?
No, Mike, zero. We made some commitments to the Department of Justice after the Judge Leon's order in terms of how we would operate and run Time Warner, specifically Turner, the Turner networks, that we would hold them separately, we would run them independently, have firewalls between them and DirecTV. Well, guess what? Those are the kind of things we have to do anyway. I mean, when you have content players who are both suppliers and customers, you just have an obligation to treat them that way anyway. So this changes nothing about how we operate the business. It changes nothing about products we will launch. It changes nothing about other M&A we may need to do, like AppNexus. So again, I'll just say it, we're off and executing.
I want to hear more about how the integration is going so far. But first, I have to ask you about your conversations down at the Sun Valley Lodge with all the other media CEOs. When we started this week here in Sun Valley, media CEOs were telling me that it was open season for M&A, and they were enthusiastic and thrilled about the high valuations that were going to come now that it seemed like anyone could go forward and move a deal on the heels of Judge Leon's ruling. What's your advice to the CEOs down there right now about how they should be thinking about their potential for deals?
If I were a CEO looking at media acquisitions and deals, I don't think I would be looking at them today any differently than I did yesterday. I think this is a process that will play itself out, but I think there is such a slim chance of this thing being altered in some way that it wouldn't affect my thinking much at all. Judge Leon's order was so fact specific, and if I were a CEO, I'd have looked at the AT&T and Time Warner case. I looked at Judge Leon's order, and I would have said his order was very specific to that deal. And so I would have already set that deal aside as I were evaluating M&A. And so I don't think this changes anything.
Joe?
No, I was watching before yesterday in the news. I was going to see whether Randall was dressing differently, in like Hollywood getup or something, and whether he'd have some affected sort of. You haven't changed, but now I'm wondering whether because of this ruling or what you're never going to change, right, Randall? You
I'm too old to change, Joe. I'm too old and I'm too tired to change. I'm just going to stay the way I am.
This is going to make you even more tired, I know, but. I don't know, the ruling was, I've said it before, the ruling just seems so specific that when you're challenging something, you don't challenge it anew. You have to go back and look at what the original court, an appeals court looks at the original finding to see if there's an error in the original court ruling. Is that the way it works, or can it start anew?
Yeah, they'll be looking at issues of law, not issues of fact. Generally, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm giving legal advice here, but what an appellate court will look at, they'll say the judge gets the benefit of the doubt on the facts, on the factual issues. On matters of law, they'll look at proceedings. Did he do anything that was counter to law? And so obviously you might well imagine we had a lot of appellate lawyers involved in this and in every single minute of the court proceeding, and we feel really good. Judge Leon ran a very tight process, a very tight courtroom, and so we feel pretty good about the ruling that we got. Okay.
What do you tell investors, Randall, in terms of clarity on this? Do you think that we will know, investors will know what the result of the appeal is in 6 months, in 10 months, in a year, and you're willing to take this all the way to the Supreme Court?
It's hard to say, Melissa. It will probably be, 5 or 6 months. But in terms of the uncertainty, again, this is, if you're an investor, you're weighing probabilities. The probability of this thing changing is, we think, very, very low.
Tell us how the integration is going so far. Joe made jokes about you not transforming into a Hollywood type, but there are questions about whether there's a culture clash between the AT&T culture and Warner Media. Are you concerned about that?
Am I concerned about it? No, I'm conscious of it, and we're being very, very careful and mindful of that. The way we've organized the business, it will be run very separately, very independently. It's important that we preserve the culture. I mean, the culture of a media company is all about creativity, and it's a company that every single night all your assets drive home. And so that's one we have to be very mindful of. And so John Stankey has spent a lot of time the first couple of weeks just making sure that he's touching the employees, touching the talent, making sure that they understand that they will be left to do what they do best. But then we do have some synergies we need to go after in this thing, particularly the advertising synergies. And there are some cost synergies there at the corporate level. Those will be those won't affect the creative side of the business. But we feel really good about our ability to execute on this.
And what about HBO? There's been a lot of focus and speculation on how much you're going to be changing it and the potential risks to the value of the HBO brand if you change it too much. What's your plan there?
Well, it's an amazing franchise, it's an amazing brand, and so anything you do, you're going to do very cautiously, recognizing just how successful it's been. There's been a lot reported about John Stankey's comments of we want to drive more and more engagement. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about, engaging the consumer, because the more engagement you have, the more opportunity you have to create value. And so engagement, when people hear that, they say that means they're going to be pumping a lot more content into HBO. Maybe. But we're looking at a lot of different avenues for driving engagement. We have a lot of digital properties. Our DirecTV Now product, it's an over-the-top product. It's growing like crazy. It's doing 300,000 subscribers added every single quarter. We just now added Watch TV, which you heard Joe talk about, which is a $20 product. We're seeing some really good uptake on that early on in the marketplace. We have a number of digital properties. We now own CNN.com, the most watched news website in the world, and so we're really excited about that. So how do you drive engagement across all these platforms and put that with 170 million customer relationships?
You also now own 10% of Hulu. Would you want to sell that or be interested in buying more Hulu?
It's too early to say. We got a lot of questions like that to address and to answer, and plus we don't know who's going to be owning Hulu when it's all said and done, and so who will be the parties to that. So it's too early to say on Hulu.
Well, Randall Stephenson, CEO of AT&T, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Julia. Good to be here.